This is the primal scream of a dying regime.
Pray for our enemies, because we're going medieval on these people. You're just not got a free shot on all these networks lying about the people. The people have had a belly full of it. I know you don't like hearing that. I know you try to do everything in the world to stop that, but you're not going to stop it. It's going to happen.
And where do people like that go to share the big lie? MAGA media. I wish in my soul, I wish that any of these people had a conscience.
Ask yourself, what is my task and what is my purpose? If that answer is to save my country, this country will be saved.
War Room. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Monday, 10 August, year of Lord 2026. Jim Rickards is going to join us in a moment to change his schedule around to be with us. Talk about all these massive developments that happened over the weekend about certain situations in the world and impact on world economy and capital markets. First, I got two. Kobe, I had you on the other day. You mentioned this thing, this change the administration is doing. I guess essentially to take away the COVID area underwriting of part of Medicare. My phone blew up. Can you just go back? I want to make sure you explained exactly what's happening, what the administration is doing, and why you think they're doing it, and then why people should call 845 War Room so that your team can help them think it through, sir.
During the Biden administration, with the Inflation Reduction Act, there was a subsidy implemented to support the Part D program. So that's the part of Medicare that is just Medicare prescription policies called Part D policies. And with this subsidy, the intent was to lower prices, especially coming out of COVID, to support Americans as part of the IRA. What the current administration has done is ended those subsidies a year before they were planned to expire. So instead of a $10 billion subsidy over last year and next year, it'll turn out to be about a $6.5 billion subsidy. So the government will save about $3.5 billion by ending the program at the end of this year. Why does that matter to Americans on Medicare? About 25 million people are on the Part D program. 25 million Americans are on the Medicare Part D program. And it is very likely that people's premiums and copays will increase when the subsidy goes away. And so because only about 3 in 10, only about 30% of Americans actually shop their Medicare plan each year, that means 70% of people don't shop their plan. Many people may have an opportunity to save a lot of money by looking at their Part D plan and all of their Medicare plans going into this new regime without the subsidy. So it's really important that people call 845 War Room, give us a call. It's totally free. And we can help you assess whether there's an opportunity for you to save a lot of money on not just your Part D plan, which we'll do, but also on your core Medicare plan or your Medicare supplement plan. So if you call 845 War Room, you'll be directly connected to one of our licensed Medicare advisors. They'll answer all your questions. They'll walk you through all of the options you have. We look at 100% of Medicare options. It's one of the unique elements of our operating model. And we'll make sure you get the plan that not only gives you the right healthcare coverage, which is most important, but also does so at the lowest possible cost. And as the market has a lot of these changes and as prices increase, there's even more opportunity for savings than usual right now.
And 845 War Room, it's a hotline set up just with War Room. It's saved over $1 million of War Room Posse. Most importantly, it's gotten you into optimum plans that are right for you. That's the key. It's not simply the money saved. And the call is free and no obligation, correct, Kobe?
That's right. That's right. We never charge for our services.
845 War Room. Go check it out today. Kobe, thank you for coming on. Thank you for making that clear. The feedback we've gotten from the War Room Posse is enormous. So just keep doing what you guys are doing. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Steve.
Look, it's mind-numbingly complex. That's why even understanding and saving money and, Russ Vogt and the team got to somehow close these deficits. These subsidies, also the subsidy for some of the Obamacare is going away. Also, you need to understand it, why, but you also need to understand why it impacts you. 845 Worm, go check it out today. Grace, both Dr. Navarro at the federal level, but really Brian Harrison, I want to make sure people know that you guys have come up, you and the development team have come up at BillBlaster, and you have something totally free, an app, but you can get access to all the information you need, like the other day with with Cornyn, you actually had it broken down, all his regional offices. If you want to call his local regional office and put in a complaint or put in an observation, I should say, you have it. Give me a second. Talk to me about BillBlaster, and particularly the situation in Texas of calling us for a special session and doing it ASAP. I would love to have it done before that convention we're going to have down in Dallas. I think it'd be great. But also calling the speaker down there. How do people get to BillBlaster, how they download it, and how they use it?
Okay, so Steve, we just rolled out a major update and we expanded what people can do with the app. So I just want to go quickly through the changes. We completely redesigned the directory. You can browse the federal officials by state with names organized underneath. You can search directly by name. We also have state officials, like Steve said. You can find your governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general, secretary of state, state senator, etc. And just like Texas Rep. Brian Harrison was just talking about calling for a special session. So Texas Posse, pull up BillBlaster, go to Texas, and you have the contact information right there for the governor, lieutenant governor, speaker, state senators, state representatives. And in fact, make sure to enable your push notifications, because I'm going to send one out right now for all the Texas Posse to take action and to call. And so you'll get that, and that's a new added feature. You'll get that directly to your phone. And we also added federal committees. You can see all the congressional committees, who exactly serves on them, and contact members from there. And the bills, we've added more information. You can follow actually what's happening with each piece of legislation. You can see the status, latest action, sponsor, all the co-sponsors, and you can actually take action from there. So you can call the sponsors or a sponsor of the bill or the co-sponsors. And probably my favorite is what we added is the congressional roll call vote. So that's a new added feature. You can pull up a roll call and see what the vote was all about, whether it passed or failed, the vote by party, exactly how every single member voted. And you can go directly from that roll call to that underlying bill and see all the information on the legislation itself. So it's a great update. It's my favorite, and you can export the roll call reports. And like I was saying before, make sure you enable push notifications on BillBlaster, because when there's an important vote or bill where we need the posse to take action, WarRoom's going to send you a push notification to your phone. So it doesn't matter where you are, you get the alert, open BillBlaster, and you can immediately start calling or contacting whomever or everybody. And so just think about what that means. It's not 5 of us, it's not 50, it's tens of thousands of members of the WarRoom posse getting the same alert, contacting at the same time. So that is our weapon. So remember, BillBlaster was made specifically for the posse because you guys are activists. So action, action, action. You can go to warroom.org. It's your home base for all things WarRoom. You can download it from there, or go to the Apple App Store or Google Play Store and just search BillBlaster, one word, and download. So
where they go,
make sure
where they go to download it, to Apple and where else?
A Google Play Store.
Okay.
You can go there, BillBlaster, one word, or just go to warroom.org. Go there. You could download BillBlaster, sign up for the newsletter, download the podcast, go buy some merch, support us. It's all there.
What Grace has done, because she takes this from an activist viewpoint with the development team, BillBlaster weaponizes your agency. It makes it easier. This is called operating leverage in business terms. This is why the reviews, because the development of these types of things, as Grace knows, is so far beyond my comprehension. But I read the reviews and people love this. Why? It weaponizes your agency. It allows you to do more. It gives you a bigger voice. Don't think you're a grundoon. Don't think you're just some schmendrick. You're not. You can, not just with this, you can initiate action that tens of thousands of other people are going to pick up. So weaponize your agency. Go and download BillBlaster Day. It's totally free. Grace and the development team have done a great job. One more time, Grace, where do people go specifically right now to download this and look at all the new features you guys have put in?
Go to warroom.org. You'll see BillBlaster right there. or BillBlasterApp.org, but I always say WarRoom.org. That's our home base, so you can see everything that's going on with WarRoom.
Grace, I thought your favorite feature was the trolling feature. Grace Chong, Queen of the Trolls.
Yes,
Thank you, ma'am.
that's also my favorite. Thank you.
Also your favorite. Thanks, Grace. Thank you, ma'am. Rickards. First off, Rickards, how do you recover from that? You're mountaineering. You're getting set to do some more mountaineering. I take it, and you're getting in shape.
Yeah, I've done a lot of technical climbing, Denali, Rainier, a number of other mountains. I'm aiming for Kilimanjaro in mid-September. It's not highly technical, but it is the highest freestanding mountain in the world. And the interesting thing is you go through 4 climate zones, jungle, temperate, high plateau, and then glacier on top. So it's a little bit of everything. I'm looking forward to it. But I've been climbing mountains. I live in New Hampshire. We got some 3,000, 4,000 foot mountains. So I've been doing those, just to train. But the best training for mountain climbing turns out to be mountain climbing. So that's what I've been doing.
The White Mountains in New Hampshire. Spent a lot of time there as a young man.
Yep.
Wandering around, climbing. I asked you on today because so much has happened over the weekend, and you've had your hand on the pulse, specifically with the Persians. Your assessment of what they came back with, a deal that had the United States as not a participant, but a deal between the Omanis and the Persians about the Strait of Hormuz, but they included a lot of other things in it. I'm going to hold you to the break, but the floor is yours. Tell us what you think. So break it down and tell us what you think.
Yeah, Steve, I really dislike repeating myself on your program, but since the White House and Iran are repeating themselves, I really don't have a lot of choice. This is what I've called rope-a-dope, which is Iran, sort of participates in negotiations, offers some kind of deal. Trump rushes in, says we're 2 days away from reopening the strait, et cetera, and then boom, off the rope with a knockout punch with deals, with terms that Trump won't accept. So the new deal, you're right, this was negotiated between Iran and Oman, who control the Strait of Hormuz, or at least geographically. And about a week ago, Trump said, we're 2 days away from a deal. Well, we actually were two days away from a deal, but the U.S. was not included in the deal. It was, Iran and Oman coming up with tolls and registrations and how to control traffic. But then, typical Persian style, the Iranians piled on. So Arghachi, the foreign minister, said, oh, by the way, this deal with Iran, which would reopen the strait on their terms, requires that the U.S. pay reparations for war damages, which I don't think Trump will ever agree to and probably shouldn't. And then another guy, Zolkader, said not only that, he's the head of in effect, the National Security Advisor for Iran. Arghachi is the foreign minister. But Zolkader said, oh, and by the way, you have to lay off the Houthis, Hamas, and Hezbollah. So, and it doesn't matter what Trump says about that because Israel won't lay off. So it's a conditional deal, but the conditions cannot be met. In other words, no deal. Sounds good, but nothing's happening. This is just more of the same. It's a lot of headlines, a lot of kind of bombast, and war's over in 2 days, but it's not happening.
Also, and I think they pointed to their big fear, a condition precedent of all of it is that the fleet has to leave. The blockade has to be lifted and all the American assets out of the region. Correct, sir?
Oh, you're right. See, the list goes on. Yeah, the Roosevelt and the Abraham Lincoln are two aircraft carriers and aircraft carrier strike forces. They got to get back to home port. They close U.S. bases in the area, release the frozen assets, and as I say, it goes on and on. There's some kind of deal possible, but it would basically be a full-scale retreat, not just a stalemate or a ceasefire, but a full-scale retreat from the Middle East for the United States. And I don't think Trump would agree to that, and so nothing's happening. But yeah, it's basically and the White House is also missing another thing. They said the other day, well, you just give us time. We're going to keep the blockade in place, and the blockade is working, but you're shutting down traffic from the Persian Gulf.
Hang on one second. We'll take a short commercial break. Jim Rickards is with us. We're going to pivot to this economic warfare. What is possible? What can be done now? Is this the way to actually bring this to a head next in the War Room?
Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
You see, when they started working on the MOU, one of the things that observation we made here at the War Room, given that I was over there back in 79, 80, and I know the power of naval blockades, particularly in that area of the world, how jammed up it is, and you can effectuate with a couple of carrier battle groups a real blockade. When we allowed them to start taking ships out and monetizing oil, that gave them more breathing room. You made a comment, and I want to drill down on it. In typical Persian style, explain to the audience, given your history and your knowledge of history, typical Persian style, because these guys have been around for 3,500, 5,000 years. They're a great empire. They took on the Greeks. They took on ever heard the Greeks and the Romans? Hell, they occupied Jerusalem, or had folks in Jerusalem taken to be in Persia. These folks have been around a long time. They ain't going anywhere. They're going to be around a long time more, but they got a house style, and that house style is what Jim Rickards.
Well, you're exactly right. Remember, this is the culture that invented chess. Like invented it. So start there in terms of their ability. There are only two individuals in history who have conquered Persia, even temporarily, Alexander the Great and I guess Kermit Roosevelt, because he overthrew the Shah, overthrew the Mossadegh, the president. But other than that, they've been a continuous culture, major power. People think, they put Iran in some, I'll say everyday Americans or even policymakers put Iran in some kind of third world emerging market bucket. No, it's 80 million people. The landmass of Iran is larger than the entire United States east of the Mississippi. Maybe chop off Florida, but that's how big it is, and that's how large the population is. Culture is very strong. Trump has made it stronger by attacking. There were people who might have dissented or opposed the regime, but if you start dropping bombs in their neighborhood, they decide maybe I'll join the team. So we've actually unified the Iranians. Yeah, and I hate to use cliches, but if you've ever negotiated in a bazaar or an open market or whatever in the Middle East or Persia, you know what it's like. So I think the White House is kind of playing by 19th century European rules. That's not how the Persians play.
You brought up the fact they invented chess. They're thinking four or five moves ahead, and it's time now to use our strength. Let's talk about economic warfare, because when you relieved you lifted the blockade 2 months ago, when you're negotiating the MOU, you give these guys any cash, because they're saying, remember, condition precedent even to get to the MOU was, we got to get cash. Well, that just gives them breathing room and allows them to get, hey, it's not Steve Bannon criticizing. All I'm saying is look at what they returned yesterday. They took that one paragraph from the MOU, which is, when it first came out, I go, what are we doing? Why are we setting up a thing called a mechanism? And why are we including Oman? You don't want to expand this. You want to contract it. Right. Please don't bring the Omanis in. That's a whole different breed of pirate. Right now and look at the deal they cut. That was a slap in the face to the United States right there and to President Trump. And now I think it's time, if they want to be tough guys, let's go at them economic warfare. We had them on their knees back in January. This is when 1 million people, the Mossad and the CIA were dead wrong. It wasn't the bombing that brought them to overthrow the regime. The bombing incited more Persian nationalism, because then it's like the Blitz in London. It's even guys that didn't like Churchill saying, okay, it's us versus them. Right now, but in the economic sphere, they had a very different response. They did try to overthrow a regime. Now, unfortunately, 40,000 of them, according to President Trump, got killed. But it's economic warfare that can get us through here without any more dropping bombs, no more kinetic action. Jim Rickards, your thoughts?
Well, that's exactly right. And by the way, when we really had them on their knees was 2011 under Obama. They ran a very good financial warfare campaign. Or economic warfare. We were not bombing or planning to invade or anything of the sort. No one was blocking the Strait of Hormuz, but we strangled them financially, kicked them out of SWIFT. They're still out of SWIFT, froze their assets, but a lot more, including what are called secondary sanctions. Secondary sanctions are, okay, I put a lot of sanctions on you, but you're doing business with India, China, whoever, you put sanctions on those companies, or sorry, those countries rather, and you can do it with oil companies or refineries, but get the banks. The banks are the beating heart of the global financial system, even more important than SWIFT. And if you start kicking, because every one of these major banks has major operations in the United States. So we have the jurisdiction, the UBS, is a Swiss bank. UBS, they got something in Switzerland. They have much bigger operations in the United States. That's how we whip them around as needed. There's one thing, I can't think of anyone better on the scene today than Scott Besson to do this. Whether he's fully briefed on all the techniques, I don't know, but there's a lot there. But remember what Obama did when we got the memorandum at the time on Iranian enrichment. He dropped tens of billions of dollars of physical gold and cash on the runway in Tehran and took off. Interestingly, the cash was not in dollars; it was in euros. They had to go to the Central Bank of the Netherlands to get the euros, so that they could be passed along with even less accountability. One blind spot Besant may have is gold. I spent a lot of my life in Philadelphia. In Philly, we have something called walking around money, which is, just cash in your pocket so you can avoid all the payment systems. Well, physical gold, it's not walking around money. It's pretty heavy actually, but it is a good means of exchange, medium of exchange. So Russia can fly gold bullion to Iran to pay for Iranian drone technology and drone exports. Iran can fly the gold to China if they so choose to pay for whatever technology they need from China, or China can give Iran.
But hang on. But this is okay. This is my point. If we're going to get serious, and Scott went after the currency, which I want to talk to you about. We got to cut off you can't let the CCP do an overland route through our allies Pakistan to rearm these guys. You can't let the Russians come in and do purchase drones for them and pay them in cash or pay them in gold. If we're going to go to economic warfare, we should say its entirety. Europe, you're on notice. You trade with them, you're done. Dubai and UAE and Dubai and all that, you're not going to money launder for them. The Saudis, you're not going to play footsie with them. Pakistan, Turkey, everybody's that. We're going to hermetically seal this economically and bring these guys to their knees and see how tough they are. No more shooting, no more deaths, no more killing. Hey, there may be some starvation. There may be some killing in the streets when they take over. But, hey, that's the price you pay for bringing this regime to power. The Persian people did it. They brought them to power. They kicked us out, back in 1979. Hey, maybe they had some reasons they thought in their minds, but now they got to pay the piper. And the piper should be complete economic strangulation to see how tough they are and see how tough. I'm so tired of hearing how tough this regime is. Let's see how tough they are. They weren't that tough in January when Scott Besson went down and started destroying their currency. Next thing you know, you saw a lot of folks in the streets. What we don't want to do is bring them together by bombing them more, I think, because that creates a sense of Persian nationalism, which is like, hey, so's your old man. So I just think we need a different take on this. But if we do, Jim, we have to go back to what you've been preaching. We have to go back to full 100% economic warfare, including telling the CCP that if you trade with these guys, you're going to deal with us directly because we're not going to allow it to happen. Sir, your thoughts?
Well, that's exactly right. And I kind of like the Russian way of doing this, which is it's financial, economic warfare is probably a better term, but there's a kinetic element. You don't bomb for the sake of bombing or telling people how much you blew up. That doesn't work, period. But the Russians, for example, right now, they're isolating Odessa, which is a major port city, well, the biggest port city in Ukraine. But they just blew up a bridge that connects Odessa with Romania because the Ukrainians, the Black Sea is pretty much closed at this point. By the way, a massive amount of grain exports are not getting out. So you mentioned starvation. That's in the pipeline because neither Russian nor Ukrainian grain is getting out of the Black Sea. But the reason they blew up that bridge is so Ukraine couldn't send, vessels, or basically not vessels, get trucks and trains in from Romania to resupply the weapons or export goods. So there's a case where you're not just blowing up a bridge for the sake of it. That's economic strangulation with a kinetic twist. That's the smart way to do it. But there's just a lot else we can do. And I say gold in particular, it's non-traceable, completely fungible. You get a gold bar, good delivery bar, you melt it down, you recast it, change the serial numbers. You cannot trace that gold bar. It's an atomic, it's an element, atomic number 79. It's just no way to trace it. So Russia,
Jim Rickards,
sorry.
Jim Rickards CIA training coming out on a Monday morning for those of you taking notes at home. Oh God, I love it. Rickards, how do people get to strategic intelligence? People love this newsletter. You've set up a special deal to give them access to it. How do they go? And what's the deal you're offering?
Yeah, thanks, Steve. This is our newsletter, Strategic Intelligence. The landing page is rickardsintel.com, rickardsintel.com. For the 4th of July, we started a special offer, $17.76 or $17.76 for 3 months. You can cancel within the first month if you don't like it. Vast majority just stay with us. We love that. And by the way, Steve, this is one of the top largest circulation paid financial newsletters in the industry. So it's not a niche product. We have a huge audience. We're very grateful to all of our readers. And we don't tell you what happened. We tell you what's going to happen. Starting September 1st, we're starting a 3-month, 3-part series focusing on the midterm elections. By the way, our track record speaks for itself. We called Trump in 2016. Yep. We called Brexit. And we're the only ones who said Trump would get 312 electoral votes in 2024. Yep. And that's exactly what he got.
Dead spot on. Jim Rickards, thank you. Now, I take my gold from Birch, I melt it down, and then I recast it without the serial number. Is that my Jim Rickards? Yep. CIA training comes through on a Monday morning. Jim, thank you. And thank you for changing the schedule around to join us here on a Monday to kick the week off. I appreciate you.
Thanks.
Strategic Intelligence. Take advantage of the special offer. $17.76. You don't love it? After 3 months, Rickards will send you back your $17.76. People have signed up so far. Really, 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 really love Strategic Intelligence. Based upon predictive analytics. That's where they get things right. Solomon next in the War Room.
Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
For the BillBlaster, remember, it's totally free. Grace has sent out the notification. You've had the Texas push. Nothing could be more important right now than a sense of urgency on for the midterm elections. We're fighting for the survival of this country. The enemies of this country are inside the wire. They are, and they're now on a massive nullification project. You see this in whether it's in Manhattan or Los Angeles or Minnesota, anywhere. And then you've got radicals both in Texas and Michigan nominated by the Democratic Party for the Senate, and of course other radicals all over. So this is not a theoretical exercise. This is a live as they say metaphorically, this is a live fire exercise. We're in the middle of this. And if we don't sort this out, the path here is going to lead to a civil war unless we sort it out now and not give that burden to future generations, because that's the bet. That's what and look what happened before the last civil war of the generation in the 1840s, 1850s that didn't take care of problems and didn't get problems solved and just kicked the can down the road. There's no more kicking the can down the road. Not for this audience anyway. So BillBlaster helps empower you. Also, this whole situation in the Gulf and around the petrodollar and what does it mean? And what does it mean for the country? What does it mean for the world? What does it mean for your family? What does it mean for you? This is why we did End of the Dollar Empire, birchgold.com/Bannon. Most importantly, you get to talk to Philip Patrick and the team. If you go to, can we put up Citizens Free Press? And let me know when John's, we're having a little technical problem with the studio getting John up. He'll be up in a moment. If you go to the great Citizen Kane, and by the way, I love Kane, and here's why. This guy is absolutely maniacally focused on the news and getting information off. And you don't have to like all of his views. He's got views that, certain people don't like, but I got views people don't like. Kane is a warrior, though. He's putting up information and a broad spectrum of information, not just things that support his point of view. The one thing Kane and I have believed and worked on from day one, when we first got to know each other, is the beating heart of the national security problem of debt. Just history shows you that we're hurtling towards a problem that is going to be very tough to reverse. And this is why if you go to Citizens Free Press right now, You got the top 4 or 5 stories, or at least ahead of when we did this Washington Post editorial from the main editorial, not an op-ed. I'm not a big fan of the Bezos, Amazon, WAPO, but occasionally you get it right. This is quite a detailed. Kane's got it up, you can link on. It's quite detailed. It's got lots of charts, lots of great information. You're not going to like all the solutions, but it's a good way as a primer to start to get you up to speed on this massive issue. Okay, more on this later. Also, Birch Gold, go check it out. End of the Dollar Empire. Get to Philip Patrick and the team. Philip will be back on this week. We're going to talk about this issue and connect it to the gold as a prime reserve currency, or the U.S. dollar as a prime reserve currency. Now that we're not backed by gold, we're a fiat currency. And what that means for the pet. What does it mean when you talk about petrodollars and the Gulf? John Solomon. Situation reports. Every time you leave us, we don't know if you're coming back because you refuse to get a food taster and you're blowing people's heads up all the time. You've got a story, though. This is one thing I don't think has got at least enough attraction as far as outrage goes. You reported in the task force exposed that Comey and these guys investigated President Trump when he was commander-in-chief, not on some election deal, but when he was commander-in-chief of being a Russian asset, which to me I find offensive, has to be dealt with. Yeah. Now you dropped another bomb that you're telling me, and I realize Sessions wasn't everybody's perfect example of an attorney general, but it's the billet. He was the attorney general of the United States. You're telling me within 24 hours, this is how they work. Within 24 hours, they initiated an investigation on Sessions right after they initiated a formal investigation against President Trump about being a Russian asset, sir?
Yeah, you have it exactly right. Basically, any spaghetti they could throw on the wall to make a case to get this out of the Justice Department, where the Russia collusion case was dying, throw it over a wall and get it to a special counsel named Robert Mueller. That was the goal. As we mentioned last week, when they accused the president of being a Russian asset, they had zero evidence, zilch. In fact, almost all the evidence that had come in, they had disproven. They have the same problem when they try to predicate an investigation on Jeff Sessions. They use a 2-month-old letter from 2 Democrat senators and one story from the Huffington Post, a liberal left-leaning news organization. Those 2 things suggest, well, maybe he didn't give accurate testimony, but they had Jeff Sessions' personal letter to the Senate showing, hey, he clarified immediately. He told them, hey, I didn't mention this because I didn't consider it an official act. It was a social event. That letter would have nullified any predicate for an investigation, except if it's inside the Comey-McCabe era of the FBI, where predicates and facts and evidence seem to matter less and effect and politics seem to matter more. And so there was no basis to open up on Jeff Sessions. He had already clarified his testimony. The Senate was comfortable with it. The evidence that they were citing was from 2 Democrats on a lefty news site, but that's how they predicated investigations back then. If they had a political reason to do it, they wanted to taint Sessions, that there was no way he could ever come and have an arm's length exact defense of Trump. I want to go back to something you just said. In your story, and you're reporting the task force, which is more egregious, it wasn't that there was evidence against it or evidence that refuted it, is that every level down, essentially from the top level, we're telling them there's nothing here. It's been looked at. It's all gossip or whatever. They actually, the institution folks in there actually said it was not, and they still went ahead with a smear to begin an investigation of the commander-in-chief, duly elected by the American people, in their nullification project to show he's a Russian asset. It's like, this thing blows my mind up. This is the most egregious abuse. This makes Watergate looks like the third-rate burglary it was. I mean, this is massive. And do you believe now that Todd Blanchard is going to be sworn in today at 2 p.m. in the Oval, and now that Will Scharf has replaced Dave Warrington, do you think now with the task force and other people that this thing's going to be dealt with? Because we're burning daylight on holding these people accountable now. Well, the one thing I'm certain of, because it's the one thing that I can control, is the task force is going to continue to turn out this evidence. And Steve, you pointed out something really important. The FBI and the Justice Department in that 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, all the way to 24 timeframe, it's acting more like an opposition research arm of the Democratic Party than it is a neutral fact-based, evidence-based law enforcement and intelligence driven agency. Its sources for Donald Trump is a Russian asset, or Sessions gave misleading information, is Hillary Clinton's campaign, Pat Leahy, and Al Franken, a former comedian turned senator, and a liberal news site. What you saw back in that time frame was that the Democrats basically could send anything into the FBI, and they would turn it into a weaponized criminal investigation against Trump and his followers. I think that's what concerns people who look at the body of evidence. In any other era, the Sessions case would never have been started, nor would the Trump is an asset because he fired Comey investigation. But in the Comey-McCabe era, that's how things rolled. Politics drove the agency, not evidence.
So where do you think we go from here? I know the task force is burning away, and I don't want to get ahead of or over our skis, but just generally directionally, because already, heads of the disclosure about the Chinese Communist Party, the manipulation of the voter rolls. We've had more information come out of that. Now you've got this. Directionally, where are you guys headed?
We talk about a wash, rinse, repeat cycle, right? And whether it's Hillary Clinton's Steele dossier giving way to Al Franken's letter in the Huffington Post, you see this cycle. From Russia collusion began a second operation, an operation that was focused on protecting Joe Biden. So if there was a mirror to the Crossfire Hurricane investigation, which was get Donald Trump, even if it's fake evidence, when you got to a point where there was real evidence against Joe Biden, the same intelligence agencies, the same law enforcement agencies, they flip to try to protect Biden so he's viable against Trump. And I think the body of evidence that we'll put forth in the next 6 weeks will really make that clear, and I think be eye-opening to people. There's also more China influence into the political and election sphere of the Democratic Party. We'll get some of that out in the next few weeks. And then there's still some vulnerabilities, things that people are concerned about in the election system. We'll get that out. And just keep digging. We got millions of pages of documents, and we mine them every day. And almost every day we find something newsworthy that we're going to be able to get forward. We're basically dropping documents every couple of days now, so that's pretty exciting. We're on a good rhythm.
And the intelligence agencies, on a formal basis, are cooperating. Yeah,
FBI, CIA, NSA have been sensational. Homeland Security Department have been pretty darn good. ODNI have been fantastic. Dave Warrenton, who we mentioned, he's leaving, but he's been fantastic as the declassifier for the president. Susie Wiles has been supportive. So you got a really great team, and everybody is interested in the mission of transparency. And what's interesting is as you go through these things, you start having discussions with the intelligence agency. Sometimes we'll find something like, boy, we didn't even know that. That's really interesting, or that's very concerning. So there are really interesting conversations going on with the people running these intelligence agencies. They want to get to the bottom of it because they don't want to repeat. They don't want a future presidency to be hampered by fake intelligence or fake criminal investigations like Donald Trump's first term was. And so you see sort of everybody digging in, pitching in, working hard, and to Kash Patel and John Ratcliffe and the ODNI and the NSA, General Rudd, and all the other great people. They've been fantastic to work with, and we're really turning stuff around quickly, historically fast.
Now, is that spirit of cooperation reached in to Senator Cotton and folks over in the Senate? So that now we're going to deal with the Brennan testimony, sir?
Yeah, remember, we're 8-9 months out. We'll have to wait and see. It sounded like on Friday he made some indication that he would get a vote scheduled. That would be good news for the investigation, be good news for the American public. Let's see what happens. They got to get through the Todd Blanche confirmation, which was successful on Saturday. Big win for President Trump again. Big win for Senate Republicans. But this should be the next business of order. We'll be watching and reporting on it as it happens.
But your view is that the earliest it can be done is when they're back in September, correct? I mean, they're gone, so all their work is done.
Committees do stuff during the when the Senate floor is recessed or suspended. Committees still do work, and so it wouldn't be surprising for me to see the Senate Intel Committee to do something, or some of the other committees do stuff. I mean, Judiciary's doing things. Rand Paul's going to be doing that referral on Anthony Fauci. So while August is a quieter time, there's nothing that prohibits a Senate committee from taking some action and not having to wait until after Labor Day. So we'll be watching. I'll be watching all August long.
John Solomon, where do people go to get all your content, sir? Because it's coming fast and furious.
Well, first off, for the task force, everything gets put up on the White House website. Very proud of that, whitehouse.gov. Our own reporting's at justthenews.com. My own social media is at J. Solomon Reports. And every day at 6 o'clock, I'm lucky to follow the great Steve Bannon with the Just the News, No Noise television show here on Real America's Voice.
Solomon, I got to tell you, I'm pretty stunned by what's going up on the White House site. It is really informative, but it's quite amazing. And if you want to see all the task force, it goes right up there, and they put it up, and it's pretty stunning what's going up there so far.
It's real transparency, and hopefully it'll lead to real accountability. And I think that's what the president wanted, and I'm just so grateful he gave us a chance to do it.
Good on you, John. Thank you so much for taking time away.
Back at you, brother.
I know you run around between the Senate and the White House. Thank you, sir. Head of the task force, Real America's Voice, own John Solomon, doing double duty, hosting the show, running Just the News, and running the task force. Go over the White House site. In fact, I think I'll get Grace. Maybe we can even put it on BillBlaster. Check it out. I'll talk to her during the break. Short break. Back in a moment.
War Room. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
So we're going to toss the Charlie Kirk show here in, about 8 minutes or so. Then Poso's at 2, but during Poso's show, Jack's show, Todd Blanche should be sworn in as the Attorney General of the United States. Big victory for President Trump, big victory for this administration. Todd will be sworn in at 2. We're going to be back at 5. At 5 o'clock, we're going to have Cleta Mitchell on for an update on everything that's going on election integrity. Remember, the Senate just gave you a fare thee well. Didn't deal with the Save America. They had 1,000,001 excuses, no understanding of how to take really action on it. Just a bunch of mumbo jumbo, and we didn't even have a vote to know about on the recess or who's doing what. We don't have a personal vote to know where they stand, so they can't hide behind anything. They're going to be in pro forma sessions every day to make sure that President Trump can't have recess appointments. Just as a smack in the face to MAGA, they pulled Carrie Lake. Carrie Lake, who's done such a great job for this administration, trying to sort out this mess that the global media, the propaganda departments we've had that have been propaganda against the administration, against MAGA, against President Trump, against populist nationalism, and rife in the Chinese part, the Mandarin language, rife with the Chinese spies. Let me repeat that, just deep embeds Chinese spies. The great job Carrie Lake did to spite MAGA and to spite the president and to spite Carrie Lake. They pulled her name out. And now she can't get confirmed at least until September. And quite frankly, Tillis and these deadbeats are going to hold her hostage because of all the great work she's done with MAGA over the years and how outspoken she's been. This is how they play ball. And we still got these phony pro forma recesses. This is why I had strongly recommended a throwdown with Thune, because I told you this is exactly what he's going to do. They're going to do what they want to do and focus on what they want to focus on, not the President of the United States, and then they're going to leave town and take us 5 or 6 week. Do you have a 5 or 6 week vacation? Do you get to go anywhere in the world you want for 5 or 6 weeks and just kind of lollygag around? I don't think so. I think if you're lucky, you may get a week off or so, and you're grinding the entire time. That in and of itself is not a bad thing. People love their work. Most people do, and they love being at it. It's the principle of the thing. These folks don't hit, the ones in the Senate do not hit a lick. It is don't take it from me. Take it from Coach Tuberville. Being a college football coach is, 18 hours a day, 7 days a week. These guys take a couple of days off after the bowl games, the national championship games, and they grind the entire time. Tommy Tuberville coming up through that chain into the SEC over at Auburn, he knows how to work. What did he say? His biggest disappointment was how just ineffective and lazy the whole thing is a joke. Come on the show time and time again. It's just a joke. The process and the procedures are a joke. That's the issue. The process and the procedures are a joke, and what the commitment. They're only here for a couple of days a week. Now they got to take off. They don't accomplish anything the president put as a priority. This is why we recommend a national security emergency memorandum for the president to basically use as a predicate everything the task force and everybody else is finding, like down in Fulton County, use it all as a predicate, declare a national security emergency for this election. We cannot allow this election to be tampered with by dark forces of the Chinese Communist Party, overseas money, and these Marxist jihadists that you have right now stealing election. Look, we had the report from New York the other day, 23% of the votes, ineligible. They don't care about certifying elections. They're going to certify victories for themselves. They're not looking for free and fair elections. They're looking for victories, and they play smash mouth. And what do we have? Controlled opposition of the House of Lords, the Senate. This is why we started the show with Brian Harrison. I want to start on Monday morning and have Brian fire people up that, hey, you can have a special session in the Texas legislature. And we've had a pretty good track record. This is how we got the redistricting done, right, by these special sessions. And focus. And he's saying right now you need them not just on property taxes, but Sharia law, and particularly not giving birth certificates to birthright citizenship or the birther tourism that is rampant in Texas and California. In Texas, you don't have to issue it. We had Fishback on the other day. He called for it in the state of Florida if he's elected the governor of the free state. Right now, we have an issue of intensity and urgency. They're quite intense on the left. Why are they intense on the left and have a sense of urgency? Because they see in their eyes, and as Jamie Raskin, these guys repeat and reinforce them all the time, and now Reuters and other people picking up the stories that they've got 3 or 4 law firms. They're coming after Trump. It's going to be impeachment. They're not going to try it or not going to bring it to a head for a year. They'll wait to the middle of the primary season in 2018, but they're going to start right out of the box in 2027, and they're going to quite intensely turn the White House into Fort Apache. That's why they have intensity. That's why we have to, match that intensity. And it's tough but doable. As I said today on the John Frederick show about a victory here. It's tough but doable, but can be done. Matt Bull is going to be with us at 6. He's oversees the great national political editor of Breitbart. We're going to cover an entire range of things, including politics here, but also geopolitically what's happening there. Make sure you go to, by the way, it's not just the subsidy for parts of Medicare that are running out because you got to figure out how to try to balance this budget. It's also a bunch of subsidies for Obamacare have run out. Now Obamacare, which is a disaster to begin with, is getting very, very expensive for people. America's Health Share has an alternative. You have to understand the alternative. It's going to take some due diligence on your part to make sure you understand what it is and what it means for you. You can start that process, start that journey by going freedomforhealth.org. That's the site landing page just for us, freedomforhealth.org/Bannon. You'll find out, get all the information. You talk to management, do all that. Also, you get a free month free if you transition over, but don't do it for the free month. It's a major transition, so you ought to understand it. Also, All Family Pharmacy, allfamilypharmacy.com/Bannon. Bannon10, get 10% off besides the overhead savings. This is to break the hold of the drugstore chains and the big pharma distributors on your medical freedom. Make sure you take care of that today. We get amazing feedback about Michael Kunstler and his team, about the availability of the drugs that you need, licensed professionals, pharmacists, licensed medical professionals. Check it all out. Okay, Charlie Kirk's next. We're back at 5, on fire at 5. We'll see you then.